just looking at the gasket, head gasket, and there's no real like a seal. It just seems to be plain metal. And then I noticed this, which I think this is this is like the epoxy, I think. I think they use something called copper seal first. The person I bought this from, I think that's what this is. And then this other stuff might be the epoxy that I use to try to seal it, but I'm pretty sure the head gasket was leaking. The new one I have has what they call fire seals, and it's like a rubber gasket that goes around there. But yeah, I think the head gasket was leaking. It's much dirtier than I thought it would be. And you can see where it was like running down right here, running down. Of course, that could have been when I took the head off. That could have done it. That looks like a buildup of something leaking. Well, first thing I have to do is take the dowel pins out so I can clean the block. So I got the dowel pins out, and they're not what I expected. They got I guess so they'll fit. You know, they fit them in, and they've got a split in them, so they I guess it pushes out and it keeps them in the block. But they're not like anything I've seen before. I have to get all this coolant out before I start cleaning. And in the back too. This right here, I think, is the oil, where the oil comes up. And there's the filter, so that would be logical. And I think that right there, I think that's the NOx sensor. And that goes into the coolant. So let's see if I can see it sticking out. It should be sticking out down in here. Yeah, there it is right there. And what happens is, the theory is that when the car, when there's a not a misfire, but pre-ignition, I guess. When there's pre-ignition, the vibration travels faster through the coolant than it would through metal. So that's why they put the NOx sensor in the coolant stream. I used this to draw out the coolant in the main channel, but the water jacket around the pistons is a little bit smaller, so I had to use a syringe with a piece of plastic tubing, or rubber tubing on the end. So the what I was using, it got down in here, but it wouldn't go down in here. What I showed you previously. 90 today. You also need to drain the rest of the coolant out of the system. There's still a coolant trap in the water jacket in the top, which is what I was thinking originally. I think I'm going to switch to the green one, which is a little, it's a little bit more coarser. I don't have a really big compressor. I gotta let it build up. All this, there's like water down, coolant down in these are bulb holes. You want to make sure you get all that, even if you have to use like a Q-tip. You want to get all that out, because when you put the bulb in there, it's going to push fluid out on here. When you're putting the head back together, it's going to ruin the head gasket. I'm going to do another pass. I think this looks pretty good right now, but I'm still going to do another pass, clean it up a little bit more. Make sure to get all the coolant that's down in the bulb holes, because that will ruin anything faster. And see the coolant down there? And make sure you get all that out, because that'll ruin a head gasket job faster than anything else. I'm also going to get replace my filter, my oil filter, and replace that and change the oil before I start it up. And there's the broken ECT. I think they call it an ECT on a Nissan. All the different car manufacturers have different variances of the sensors. But that's It was broken when I got the car, so I got a replacement connector. Another way you can clean the coolant out of recesses and everything, you know, just like bolt holes, not the actual coolant, the water jacket, but you know, out of like bolt holes or recesses, is to use compressed air. That's all the stuff that would come out. Like if you didn't clean them out when you put the bolt in, all that stuff's going to come out. And make sure you have eye protection on while you're doing this. The whole time you're working on the car, you probably should have eye protection. So this is something interesting I found, is these little recesses, and they don't go anywhere. It's like a blind hole. But then I noticed that there's like a little hole right up here. Right there. Let me turn the... Seems like a little hole right there. I think this is an oil passage. And this was all filled in with all kinds of grime and everything. There's 3 of them. There's another one here. And I think they've got like a pit, and that's probably maybe to trap particulates, you know, anything that's in the oil or sludge or anything like that. But this was, I mean, they were full of all kinds of crud. So here's another one. Here's the last one. See, it's got a hole like that. It goes all the way back in there. So that's probably like an oil passage. And I think this is an oil passage too, right here. And there's something else I thought was an oil passage. Could be this. I also have this really long blowgun, so it you don't get all the crap that comes out of the recess and everything, and carburetor cleaner and everything all over yourself. This is the lower intake manifold, or the limb. Everybody had an Impala. I think it was like a 7th gen Impala. I think it was from like I think like from 2000 on to 2005 are very familiar with the term limb. So I put new cable management ties on this for the main wiring harness. And these, what they do is you put the cable in there and then you loop this through. It's just like a cable tie. So I have to clean both these surfaces off. I used the white Roll-Lock. Well, these are actually they're not the Scotch Roll-Locks, they're copies. But anyway, I think they work the same with the coarse equivalent to the color, and the white is a lot. It isn't as coarse as the green. The green you use on like cast iron, and the white you use on aluminum. And so I used it on this, and this is the lower intake manifold, and this is the the surface that connects to the upper intake manifold, and then this is the part that connects to the head. So now I'm going to connect this to the head. Unfortunately, I don't think there's enough room in the engine bay because there's studs. I mean, if you took the studs out, you know, and I don't know, I think it'd be more difficult in the long run. But since you have to slide this on the studs, you need the width of this plus the studs in the engine bay, and there's just not enough. Once this is installed in there, there's only like about 4 inches between the back of the intake manifold and the firewall. I have the gasket, well, the head, the gasket, and the lower intake manifold. I haven't installed the nuts or the bolts in the bottom underneath, or torqued them down. I have to go check on the torque specifications. Everything's just finger tight right at this moment, and I have to get my I think it's an inch-pound torque wrench. So all the bolts are all torqued down, and it wasn't inch-pounds. I thought that was kind of strange, so I went back and checked. There is some items that are inch-pound. Usually it looks like fasteners. And so they're all torqued down to, I think it's 17 to 12 foot-pounds. So that's what I torqued them to. I'm going to assemble the fuel rail. So I got the fuel injectors. And the O-rings. This end piece can come off. It snaps on. Make sure that that's on there when you put the injector in. You don't want it. You want to make sure it's snapped on there good. You don't want it to drop down inside the engine. Probably wouldn't really damage anything unless it got caught between the valve and the seat. Well, yeah, you know, it probably could. I don't think it's big enough to go back out through the exhaust valve. It'd be in there bouncing around and probably would do damage. If it happens, you could always probably take the spark plug out. And luckily, these are Hemi engines, Hemi Severical. And if you did something like that and you knew it was actually in the combustion chamber, you could probably take the spark plug out and take the fuse out for the ignition and crank it over, and it'd probably come flying out. Oops. So now, oh, here it is. Let's see, this goes on, I think it goes on like this. I think that's what I remember. Remember the regulators down at so this would be the left side, I guess, right? Because this is the front of the engine. The front of the engine's that way. Yeah, I mean, that's the only way it goes on. It wouldn't go on like this. Well, I guess it could, but then the injectors would be out of, yes, it goes on like this. And then I think the injectors, were like this. like this. So I don't think they were down. I don't think they were in there like this. Yeah, I don't think they were in like, like that with it facing backwards. Because that would make it almost impossible to get them off again. To get the electrical, it'd almost be impossible to get the electrical connector off with it like within the back. Yeah, they're in the front, like around that way. A little bit of oil on the O-rings. That's one. That's two. That's three. That's four. Then you got to put these clamps on to hold them in there. You don't want them rocketing off with the, because these things are like, these are like I think it's like 50 pounds of pressure or something. The fuel pressure. So I think they just, whoops, that didn't very good. So what they have to do is they have to, the top of the fuel rail. See, it's got these little cutouts right there. Each side has a protrude on the sides. Oh, that's heavy. There. Heavy. So I already put these on. These are the shoulders for the fuel rail. And I cleaned out where the fuel injectors go. The idea of fuel injectors is so cool. So I'm going to put a little bit of oil on. I put the wrong nut on here. I put one that has, it's like got a built-in, like, see how it's sort of like pressed in, it's like a triangular. So that tightened down, it's like a self-tightening nut, and when I tried to loosen it, the stud came instead of loosening the nut, the stud came out. So luckily these studs, they have a torque socket. So I just tighten it back. Maybe it was really loose to begin with. I don't know. Maybe that's good that it happened. Tighten this one too. So I found the correct nut. It's just a regular nut. And these, I think, these are inch pounds, 17 inch pounds. I'm just going to tighten them with a wrench. Then after tightening with the wrench, you want to follow it with a torque wrench, torquing it down to the specified value. We're back outside. Nice day, no humidity. 2nd of September. It was really nice yesterday. It's just as soon as it turned September, the weather started getting nice and mild. So I put in one of the roll pins. Not really a roll pin, dowel. And the way they are is they've got a expansion joint in them, and what you can do is you squeeze that with a pair of pliers, and then it goes right in, and then it expands out again and holds it tight in place. Well, I finally had to use a pair of vice grips, and I use these, and I just pinched the end and I tightened it so they both sides of the channel came together, and then I inserted it in. I just pinched the end enough so I could get the dowel in. And then I tapped it lightly with a hammer after I took the vice grips off and tapped it with a hammer. You got to be careful that it doesn't spring out and go down into here, or go down into the timing chain cover. I have my engine stand. Got to hold the head up so I can put the cam chain through it. Put the gasket on, put the chain through the gasket, and then put the head through put the chain through the head, and then lower it down. I can just unhook it and lower it down myself, but I need something to suspend it while I put the chain through it. This is where I'm at. So I have what I had to do is set the head down on a cylinder block on a piece of wood, and I couldn't set it down. I had to set it down offset because of the chain tensioner and chain. So now I'm sliding it down, and then I'm going to have to put the head gasket on, route the chain through it, and then route the chain through the head, and then lower the head down on top of it. Hopefully this goes off without damaging the cylinder head gasket. I have it pretty well positioned. You can slide it along, you slide this down, these both slide, and I have the chain hook on the one engine lifting mount on the back. And then I have it also on one of the exhaust studs with a nut on it, and the same with this one. Then I have it going around the fuel injection rail support. So now I'm all ready to put the gasket on. I got to route the chain through both. Where is that? Right there. So here's the new gasket. It's got what's called fire rings, and it appears to be 2 pieces. And I looked at the old one, and the old one is 2. Well, I got the gasket on, the head gasket. I got the chain routed through it, and I got the chain routed through the head. And you really can't put the gasket on backwards or upside down because of the dowels. There's only one way it will go on, because the dowels are bigger. And I mean, if you put it on upside down, you'd have the timing cover sticking out on the end. So there's only one way it will go on there. Head's back on. I had to tie off the exhaust manifold, because it kept fouling the head when I was putting it on. Tied it to the front right there. I ended up using a bungee cord to hold the exhaust flange back, exhaust manifold, and just have it hooked to goes under the grill, and then over to the rod prop. I was wondering whether I'd close the close the hood on me. So what I have to do is something I forgot to do is put a little bit of silicone right here. I have to put some silicone right here. Where's my finger? Okay, right here, and on the other side, the same place. So you have to put some silicone there, and then the head goes back down on there. This is the tightening sequence. All the head bolts have been torqued down, and the bolts for the timing I don't know, isn't really the timing cover. It's the, well, it ties into the timing cover, I guess. They've all been torqued down. So now it's time for the cams. So I filled this syringe up with 30 weight. That's what I use for my mowers. I figure it's thicker and it will last a little bit longer. So I'm going to lube everything really good, all the bearing surfaces. And then I'm going to install the cams. So I got all the bearing caps on. And see, they're all marked. See, it says like E2. If you wonder why it starts out at E2, it's because there's a cap that goes across this whole. It's both I1 and E1 both. It goes across here, so that's E1. Then this is E2, and then E3, and it's marked on each one. And the arrow points to the front of the engine, and yeah, the front of the engine you're thinking is this, but they still think of it in the way if this wasn't transversely mounted, if this was, you know, in a car with rear-wheel drive. So the front of the engine's always usually where the timing chain or the accessory belts are. So then there's E3 and E4 and then E5. So there's 5 bearing caps, and they have an arrow, like I said, pointing to the front of the engine. And the intake's the same, but it's I. So you got I5, I4, I3, I2, and then I1 is that goes all the way across here. It's I1 and E1. I haven't put that on yet. Oh, and if you should hand tighten these down for right now, the bolts. And if one doesn't go in, take the whole cap off and thread the bolt in and make sure, you know, it's okay. You don't want, one thing you don't want to do is have to strip a bolt, you know, and have to tap it out. Oh, that'd be awful. You know, I mean, you'd have probably, it wouldn't be good. I mean, it wouldn't be that bad. You'd have to put stuff around the hole so the cuttings and stuff don't get into the head, but still, it's a lot easier to avoid it. So there's my timing marks. Here's my timing marks, they're lining up. This is the bearing cap, which is E and I1, and these are the bolts. And you notice that some of them are shouldered and some aren't, and you want to make sure that you don't put one that's shouldered like this. You put it in here, what it's going to do is it's going to block the flow of oil. So the shouldered bolts go in the middle. So here's another one. They go in the middle. See, the oil flows around the threads. And then these that don't have a shoulder, they go on the outside. So the shouldered ones go in the middle, and the ones that are non-shouldered go on the outside. And that goes on here. Okay, this is the tensioner. What you need to do is push this in. And then stick a wire into this hole. What it does, it goes into this groove right here. It keeps it from coming back out again. Like that. So just in case, what I did is I stuffed a rag down in the opening for the timing cover. So nothing will, in case the chain tensioner plunger comes out. Okay, I got the cam chain tensioner in, and I had to go in from the top up here. I had to go in from here, the top, and take a screwdriver and pry on it to lever it over to get the bolt holes to line up. And I pulled the pin out. Next, you want to tighten down the bolts for the cam sprockets. They're both 22 millimeter. Don't forget the top chain guard, very important. There's two brackets that hold, this one holds the upper intake manifold, and then there's one down here that holds the lower . Oh, there's the new wire management for the wire bundle. It's right below it. So let's see if I can get to the other. I think that's it right there. Yeah, that's it right there. That's the lower intake manifold bracket. And I had the end all the way over here. It's got like a, I had to tap on the end of it to get the line up. I guess when I was taking the head and the bracket off, I knocked it. I've cleaned up the side cover, the gear sensor cover, cam cover, cam sensor cover. It's ready to go back on. The weather's really nice today. It's a perfect day for working on a car. Low humidity. As soon as it turned September, it got a lot cooler, less humidity. So this is what I've done. I've gotten the I got the cam cover on the side, and I torqued, before I did that, I torqued down both of the sprocket gears to, I think it was like one, I think the IVT one, the intake was like around 73 or something like that, and the exhaust was like around 80 foot-pounds. And so I put this cam cover on. There's no gasket, you just put sealant on it and bolt it in. I also got the wiring harness. Got both of them attached. It's right there. You can see the wire tie for it, and it fixes to the engine block right there, or the lower intake manifold. It's not the top one that looks like two C's. It's right below. That's the it looks like a wire tie. Goes right across the wiring harness. And then I got the other one on the other side. Let's see, there's the other one. I have to cut the excess leads off. That worked pretty good. Couldn't find the original factory ones, so I used these generic ones. I installed the new valve cover just temporarily, more for protection, while I have to clean this up a little bit. Clean up the I guess it's like a water collector or something. I don't know what you call it. It's got the coolant, I guess, coolant collector. It's got the thermostat. It bolts onto the side of the head. Also have to put on the upper intake manifold too. I've cleaned all the surfaces with the roll-lock block, the white one. I've installed the gasket and the I don't know, water collection, coolant collection hub. That's it's just finger tight, all the bolts. And now I'm putting on the upper intake manifold. I put the gasket on. The gasket doesn't have, there's no stud sticking out, so it's kind of, if you hit it just a little bit, the gasket moves in place. So I'm gonna just drop a couple bolts on either end and see if that will work. Okay, the upper manifold's on. The bolts are just finger tight. So what I had to do is I put the gasket on the lower intake manifold, or the limb, and then I tried to lower the upper intake manifold down, and always bump the gasket and would skew it. So what I found and I ended up doing was sticking the two outside bolts in, and the two outside bolts, and I use them as like a centering pin, and made sure that very carefully, very slowly, make sure the bolts went into the holes on the gasket, and then I lowered the manifold down. I have to install the bolt on the back of the bracket here. Next is to install the fuel rail. Install this support bracket. Put the fuel lines on. And also put the EGR on, and also the I don't know what you call it, the water hub. It has a thermostat, I guess thermostat body or something like that. And I put that on. There's a loose screw down there. I think it's a mounting bolt. I think it's for mounting something. It's right there. And also the for the EGR, the tube for the EGR, it goes to the back of the tube for the EGR that goes to the back here. You have to undo the, or not connect it up right away, but the bracket right there for the upper intake manifold bracket. This right here. So you have to slide the tube in there, and then once you do that, then you can connect the bracket back up again. And I undid it from the other end, and you need a 30mm wrench, and I'd already tightened up the front one. I'm just thinking I might have to take this all off again to hook up, to connect this back up. But anyway, I think it looks great. I finger tightened the bolt, the big 30mm bolt. I don't know if you can see it, 30 right here. For the other part of the EGR, it goes up here and then to the back. Goes to the back right there. So I just finger tightened it. I think if I take this is just emissions, and I think if I just take this bolt out here, I can just remove this whole thing, and I can get the wrench in there and finish tightening it up. So tomorrow I got to put the throttle body on, and the EGR connection in the back there, I got to do that, and then just connect up the air box and drain the oil that's in it, put fresh oil in, and I think I'm just going to put water in it instead of putting coolant just in case, and then do all the wiring and everything, connect up the alternator. So that's all tomorrow. It's a little bit hotter and humid today, so I went to the hardware store and got 2 bolts. What I did is I think I used the 2 long bolts in another part of the car that required these are like 30 millimeters. I think it was like 25 and then 20, and I think I used the 25s where a 20 should have been. But anyway, so I just bought 2 30 millimeter bolts, and they'll come out the back just a little bit. And I undid this, the 1 bolt right there, took this up so I can tighten down the EGR outlet that goes up to here. I'm fitting my throttle body with some radiator tubing. The old was really badly, was almost gone, and I mean, I had on my Impala, you know, it had almost all throttle bodies have the same. They have coolant that runs through them for I guess technical reasons to you know, heat the throttle body or whatever, or take heat away from it. And on my Impala, I just blocked it off. I blocked off the inlet where it came from and the outlet where it went back into, and I never noticed any difference. I connected up it's either the inlet or the exit, the outlet, coolant line that goes to the throttle body. And so I have to, there's another one. This one, like I said, it's either the inlet or the outlet, and I have to put a clamp on that. I put 2 bolts in the gasket and 2 bolts in the throttle body just to hold it in place. Tightening up the throttle body bolts. And then I'll torque them down to the correct specification. Okay, so we're going to torque the mounting bolts for the throttle body, and you want to do the bottom right first, top left second, then the bottom left third, and then the top right fourth. And the first pass is 8 foot-pounds, and the second pass is 16 foot-pounds. So we're going to do the first pass. And then we're going to do the second pass of 16. Every car has something bizarre with it. This one's bizarreness is this tube right here goes to the power steering banjo connection, or is it actually on the back of the? It goes down to something on the power steering. That's what this tube goes to. And it goes, the other end goes to the air box, I think. And then there's another one that goes to the same place. And that connects onto here. And what they do is the bottom part of this, the bottom lower intake manifold has a channel in it that collects like sludge. Install new exhaust gaskets and then torque down the bolts. I'm just going to tighten it down to, hand tight. So just tighten them down finger tight and then torque them to the right specs, which I will do in a moment. Tomorrow's going to be all electrical. All I have is the wiring harness. Finished up all the mechanical, exhaust, the alternator. I will have to adjust the belt again. And the air box. And the I've got the tubing. I cut it. I'm gonna the valve cover isn't in place. There's just two screws holding it in. I want to check the top end after I start it up. So I'm not going to attach the rubber hoses for the emissions for either one until after I put the valve cover on completely, permanently. Looks good. It's been raining, not too nice of a day. Getting everything, all the connectors connected up. I want to look at the top end after I run it for a while, so the valve cover just held on by two Phillips heads, and I'm not going to put the cable management on the main wiring harness, just the one on the side, keep it out of the way of the belts. And I'm probably going to put on the heat shield, because that has a bracket to hold the aux sensor cables, and also I have to put on the fans, not fan but fans. And then I have to drain the oil, fill it, new filter, and get started. Oh yeah, and fill the coolant. I wouldn't want to overheat after. That's probably what happened to the previous owner. That's why head gasket was leaking. I don't know why, actually. I mean, I'm just guessing. The head wasn't warped, so maybe not. Maybe it just wore out, the head gasket. So there's the fans. The one on the right is missing the safety guard. I guess someone replaced the fan at one time, never put the guard back on. I installed the heat shield for the exhaust and connected up all the aux sensors, and like I said, I haven't done the wiring. I'll have to also put the coils, plug-on coils on. but I'm not going to do the wiring stays or the wire management until after. What I'm going to do is I'm just changing the oil right now, so I'm going to pour some oil across everything on the top, and then take out the fuel injector fuse, and crank it over, get oil flowing, then put it back in and start it up. Look at the oil filter. They didn't have any I like Hastings oil filters, and they didn't have any those. And what's the other one? Hastings and oh, I can't think of what it is right now. I'll remember it a little later. And they didn't have any. All they had was the AC Delco. It was on sale, you know. So I got it. Look how small it is. And look at the Hastings filter. Look how much bigger that is. It's like twice as tall. So let me get back to that. It's all back together and running really good. Sounds great. Sounds like a brand new car. It was making a noise, and when it was, it scared the heck out of me. It was one of the O2 sensor wires cases were in the fan. I hope it didn't break the wire, because I did notice I've got a check engine light, so I might have to repair that. But outside of that, it's running like a top. Really good. Sounds like a new car. See the red wire for the aux sensor? Here's where it was hitting the fan. So what I did is further down, I don't think you can see it, but what I did is I put a wire tie around it. It's down near the bottom. And I wire tied it to one of the plastic shroud parts for the fan, so that will keep it out of getting in the fan. There's no one further down where it was actually hitting the fan. That one, I don't know what that is, but it looks just like that. But there's one further down that's where it was actually hitting the fan. Now it's time to start doing all the, I have to do the coolant. I just have water in it now. So I have to put in 3.5 quarts of coolant, drain it, put in 3.5 quarts of coolant, and then fill it up with water. And I'll have to do all the wiring management. The only trouble I had is I was getting a check engine light, and it was a P0118, which is something like the coolant sensor power is high or something like that. The lead is high. And I thought it was a thermistor, and it's like a resistor, and it didn't matter particularly which lead you connected up. Because what I had to do is I'd replace the connector. The other one was broken, so I just soldered the wires up. Just picked 2 wires and soldered them. And apparently I got it backwards, and so I was getting that error, and so instead of soldered them, I forgot which one I had soldered. I forgot which red I had soldered. They're not the wires for the Toyota, for the Nissan is they're not they're not like red and black. They're like brown with some kind of faded color on it, and See, there they are. It's nothing that really correlates to whatever, so I unsoldered them. I forgot which ones I had them soldered to, so I decided, instead of guessing again, I just get jumper leads and jump it. And so the first time I still was getting a check engine light, and the fans were on. That was what was happening. The fans were continually running. So in a way that was good, because I had that aux sensor wire down there hitting the fan. You know, and if that hadn't happened and I'd have driven this and then the fans come on later on, I would have probably never heard it, and it would have probably chewed through the aux sensor wire. So in a way that was good. And so I just hooked up some jumper leads. The first time I got it wrong, I still was getting the fans were on. I just reversed them, and the fans are off, and I just cleared the code. And I couldn't clear the code before.